My name is Samantha Alden, but most people just call me Sam. I'm 35 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one who kept everything from falling apart. In our family of four, I was the reliable one, the planner, the fixer. While my younger sister Jade bounced from yoga retreats to failed lifestyle blogs to dating DJ after DJ, I stayed in Seattle, held down a demanding job as an operations manager, and made sure our parents could keep the lights on. When the mortgage was overdue, I paid it. When the roof leaked in the middle of winter, I arranged the contractor and covered the costs. When my mom's insurance dropped her mid-treatment, I swiped my own credit card without hesitation. I did these things not for praise or attention, but because it felt like the right thing to do, like love in motion. Mom and Dad never asked me directly, they never had to. I knew the look in my mother's eyes when the bills piled up. I knew the tone in my father's voice when he mumbled something about being a little short this month. And I knew that if I didn't step in, things would unravel quickly. Meanwhile, Jade would breeze into town every few months, all laughter and selfies, calling Mom her bestie, and disappearing before the dishes were even cleared. She lived off charm and brand collabs, constantly posting about self-care while dodging responsibility like it was a virus. Still, I never complained. That's not how I was raised. You do what needs to be done. You hold things together. So every Saturday, like clockwork, I stopped by my parents' modest two-story home on Alki Avenue. I checked their thermostat, sorted their mail, refilled prescriptions, and refolded the towels Jade somehow always managed to tangle. I made sure they had groceries, even if it meant driving across town after my shift. And when they forgot how to navigate their own bank apps, I sat beside them and helped. Patiently, gently, like a daughter is supposed to. I never asked for anything in return. I didn't want a parade, just respect. Just recognition that I existed, not only as a helper, but as their daughter. And for a long time, I convinced myself that was enough. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a gray, drizzling Tuesday. My dad had finally admitted they were falling behind on paperwork, warranties, utility accounts, bank statements, and asked if I could help sort and digitize it all. I brought over my laptop, a portable scanner, and a large coffee with extra cream. The house smelled like damp wood and old lavender candles. While Dad watched the afternoon news with the volume too loud, I sat at the dining room table surrounded by manila folders and half-cracked binders. I was halfway through a stack of insurance records when I saw a red folder tucked beneath an envelope labeled Utilities. The tab read, Estate Plan and Last Will. I froze. I don't snoop. That's not who I am. But something inside me, an instinct, a pulse of unease, urged me to open it. So I did, and in that quiet kitchen, with the sound of rain tapping against the window and the hum of the TV in the background, I read every word. And what I found unraveled everything I thought I knew about love, family, and what I was really worth to them. I held the folder in both hands like it might burn me. For a moment, I just stared at the tab, Estate Plan and Last Will, as if reading it too fast might make it worse. I glanced over at Dad. He was dozing in his recliner, the news flashing on screen, his mouth slightly open. I could hear the anchor reporting on a local ferry accident, but the words didn't register. My focus narrowed to the pages in front of me. I opened the folder. There it was. Their official will, signed, notarized, titled with both of their full names, Daniel and Marie Alden. I began to read. It started plainly. The usual legal preamble, the listing of assets, the house valued modestly, 2 retirement accounts, life insurance policies, a paid-off used car, a few savings bonds. Nothing extravagant, but enough. Then the section that changed everything. We leave all physical property, financial assets, and ownership of our estate to our daughter, Jade Alden. Just her. Just Jade. I kept reading, hoping desperately for some sort of balance, a paragraph that mentioned me, an equal split, a clause for appreciation. Instead, I found a single line, buried near the end like a footnote. To our elder daughter, Samantha, we leave our deepest love and gratitude. That was it. Love and gratitude. Not the house I helped keep. Not the money I had quietly funneled into their accounts. Not even a thank you for the 6 years of financial rescue missions. I sat frozen at the table, the document trembling slightly in my hands. I reread it, hoping I had misunderstood something, that I missed a page. But no, it was clear. Legal, final. They had written me out. Jade, the same sister who once crashed Mom's car while drunk driving to a Halloween rave, was now the sole heir to everything I had held together. The same sister who had borrowed my debit card just for gas and overdrew my account for concert tickets. The one who once claimed to have accidentally charged $400 worth of designer candles to my Amazon account and never apologized. She was the chosen one. My name? A decorative sentence. I blinked hard, fighting the sudden sting behind my eyes. I wanted to scream, but the sound stuck in my throat like a stone. They had to know what I'd done. They had to remember. The night I stayed on the phone for 2 hours with the bank to stop the foreclosure notice. The times I postponed my own doctor's appointments because Mom's prescriptions had to be refilled. The way I drained my emergency fund twice for their property tax mistakes. How could they forget? I put the will back into the folder, trying to steady my breath. I felt like I'd been dropped into someone else's life, like I was reading a stranger's betrayal instead of my own family's. A few minutes later, Dad wandered into the kitchen, scratching his arm, casual as ever. "You still scanning those papers, kiddo?" he asked. I looked up at him, holding the folder like evidence. "Did you mean for me to see this?" I asked quietly. He paused. For the briefest second, I saw something flicker across his face. Surprise? Guilt? Maybe regret. It passed quickly. He sighed. That sigh. The one I'd heard all my life whenever I asked too many questions. The one that always came before a non-answer. "I mean, it's not about that, Sam." "Not about what?" He didn't say anything, just rubbed his neck and mumbled, "You're doing fine. You've always been the strong one." Not an apology, not a justification, just a dismissal. I stood up, gently placed the folder back where I found it, and walked past him without another word. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. But inside me, something shattered, something permanent. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't the daughter they cherished. I was the one they leaned on until I broke. That night, I went home and sat on the edge of my bed for a long time. The folder, the will, kept replaying in my mind like static. My body moved through routines, changing clothes, brushing my teeth, but my brain felt frozen, caught somewhere between disbelief and fury. I didn't sleep much, just stared at the ceiling, wondering how long they'd planned this. Was it Jade's idea? Did she ask for everything? Or had my parents offered it without hesitation, the same way they always handed her the last piece of pie and expected me not to mind? The next morning, I didn't text them like I usually did. I didn't stop by with fresh groceries or remind Dad about his cholesterol meds. I just vanished. One day passed, then another. A full week went by. Nothing. No texts from Mom asking about her tablet updates. No calls from Dad pretending not to need anything, followed by a sheepish, "Hey, could you swing by?" Jade, of course, was radio silent, probably in a cabin in Sedona recharging or at another influencer brunch. I waited. Maybe they were letting me cool off. Maybe they thought I'd brush it under the rug like I always did, that I'd show up eventually, shoulders squared, heart quietly cracked, pretending I hadn't seen what I'd seen. But by the second week, the silence grew louder. I started to realize something that chilled me deeper than any betrayal. They hadn't even noticed I was gone. Not really. They didn't miss the help, because they had never truly seen it as help. It was just background noise to them, like a porch light that always turns on at sunset, like a faucet that always runs clean water. Reliable, unnoticed, taken for granted, until it stops. The silence broke on day 16. A text popped up from Mom at 9:47 a.m. "Hi, honey. The fridge is leaking again. Can you stop by before the weekend?" Thanks. No apology. No mention of the will. No, "Hey, are you okay?" Just a request. An expectation. I stared at the message for a long time. I could have ignored it. I could have caved like I always did. Instead, I typed, Sorry. You'll need to call someone else. No emoji, no fluff. A minute later, another text came in. Dad, don't be dramatic, Sam. We just didn't think you needed anything from the will. You've got your life together. I laughed. Actually laughed, out loud in my kitchen. As if having my act together somehow disqualified me from being loved. As if responsibility was a reward in itself. As if competence was a crime. I didn't respond. And then, of course, Jade chimed in. Hey, Mom says you're acting weird. Can you chill out? This isn't a big deal. I blinked at her message. My jaw clenched so tight I felt the bone click. Wasn't a big deal? She was about to inherit the house I had paid half the mortgage on for nearly 6 years. And it wasn't a big deal? I took a deep breath and replied, then pay the mortgage. She answered with a laughing emoji. Girl, I can't afford that. That's your thing. And that was it. The final click. The last puzzle piece sliding into place. I wasn't part of their future because in their eyes, I had already given what I was supposed to give. Not love, not presence, obligation. And they thought I'd keep giving forever. They were wrong. That night, I sat on my couch, the city lights bleeding through my living room windows, and made a decision. No more. No more Saturday visits, no more Venmo transfers labeled utilities, no more late-night runs to the pharmacy because Mom forgot her refill again. No more explanations. No more trying to earn a place in a family that had already decided I didn't matter. For the first time in my adult life, I turned off the part of me that felt responsible for everyone else's mess. And that's when the messages really started. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was soft, practiced, almost cheerful. Hey, sweetie, we're a little behind on the electric bill. Not asking for anything, just thought you should know. Love you. Right, not asking, just updating me. The way someone might notify a lifeguard that they're starting to drown, loud enough to be heard but not loud enough to seem panicked. A manipulative whisper for help wrapped in feigned politeness. I deleted the message. Then came Dad. No voicemail this time, just a missed call. A quiet threat disguised as curiosity. His name sitting in my call log like a warning light. By the third day, the silence turned sour. Jade texted again. They're worried sick, Sam. You know how Mom's blood pressure gets when she's stressed. Can you please stop being selfish and just call them? Selfish. There it was. That word again. Always so quick on their tongues. Always the dagger they used when I dared to pull away. Even slightly. I stared at the message for a full minute before typing. Was it selfish when I used my savings to cover Dad's hospital stay? Or when I canceled my trip to New York so you could have your bachelorette weekend? Or maybe when I missed work for 3 days to help Mom after her surgery while you were partying in Costa Rica? I didn't send it. Not because it wasn't true, but because I finally understood something. It wouldn't matter. Jade wouldn't get it. My parents wouldn't hear it. None of them wanted the truth. They wanted compliance, silence, usefulness. And lately, I hadn't been useful. I hadn't fixed the heater. I hadn't sent the grocery Venmo. I hadn't reminded them when the property tax was due. So to them, I wasn't a daughter. I was a malfunctioning utility, an asset that stopped producing. And when the mule stops walking, the people riding it start kicking. But here's what they didn't understand. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. They had made their decision when they signed that will, when they erased me from the only legacy I helped build. That was their last chance to say, we see you. You matter. Instead, they handed it all to Jade. The daughter who never showed up for anything except filtered selfies and convenient praise. And me? I got love and gratitude in a sentence that probably took them 10 seconds to write. No, no more. That night, I poured a glass of wine, deleted the family group chat, and turned my phone on Do Not Disturb. I put on my favorite playlist and started researching travel packages for a solo trip to Scotland. Somewhere rainy and peaceful. Somewhere no one would ask me for a damn thing. Let them figure out who's going to pay for the new water heater. Let them realize what life feels like when their safety net finally walks away. The knock came on a Saturday morning. I was still in pajamas, hair in a messy bun, halfway through a reheated cup of coffee, when the call buzzed in from my building's front desk. "Hi, Miss Alden. There are 3 people downstairs asking to see you. They say they're your parents and sister. Should I let them up?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen any of them in weeks. I'd been clear. I'd cut the cords, quietly, firmly, and now they were showing up, uninvited, in person. "No," I said, steadying my voice. "Please don't let them up." There was a pause on the line. "They said it's urgent. They, look determined." "Noted," I said flatly, still no. "Understood," he replied, hesitant. I hung up and stared at my phone like it might explode. 10 minutes later, the text started. "Mom, we're downstairs. Open the door." "Dad, just want to talk. Be reasonable." "Jade, seriously? You're making Mom wait in the cold like this? What is wrong with you? What was wrong with me?" "Nothing. What was wrong was the assumption that they could show up after cutting me out of their will and expect me to pretend everything was fine. That they still believed proximity would fix what they had buried in paperwork and silence." I grabbed my keys, pulled on a hoodie, and took the elevator down. There they were, all 3 of them standing just outside the glass lobby doors. Mom wore her pearl earrings, her face pale and fragile, like she'd rehearsed the tears. Dad stood stiffly beside her, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Jade leaned against the railing, arms folded like she was about to mediate a courtroom drama. I opened the door just wide enough to block the entry. Mom stepped forward first. "Sweetheart, we just need 5 minutes. That's all." "No," I said calmly. "You need money. That's all." Her face crumpled like I'd slapped her. "That's not fair," she whispered. "Neither is leaving your daughter out of your will," I shot back. "Let's call it even." Dad stepped in, his voice sharp. "We didn't come here to argue." "No, you came here to guilt me into paying your bills again," I said, "but I'm not doing that anymore." I turned to Jade. "Ask your heiress over here." Jade scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Don't drag me into this." "Oh, you're already in it," I snapped. "You got the house, the car, the savings, the insurance. Every bit of help I gave them for years. Now yours, but somehow, I'm still the one expected to fix the heater and cover the electricity?" They didn't answer, because there was no answer. Just 3 people finally realizing that the foundation they had always leaned on had shifted, and they were standing on sand. I leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "You raised me to believe family meant love, but what it really meant was leverage. And now that I'm not holding everything up, you're panicking." Mom's lower lip trembled. Dad looked away. Jade muttered, "You're being dramatic." I smiled, cold, clear. "No, I'm being done." And with that, I closed the door. No shouting, no scene, no more bargaining, just peace. For the first time in my life, I chose myself and didn't flinch. I should have known it wouldn't end at my doorstep. By Monday morning, my phone buzzed with the notification I hadn't expected. Not a text, not a call. Facebook. I clicked out of habit and saw the post at the top of my feed. It was from my mother. A sepia-toned photo of the 4 of us. Me, Jade, Mom, and Dad, on a family hike from nearly 10 years ago. I had planned that trip, paid for the cabin, packed everyone's gear. The caption read, "Sometimes the child you love most is the one who forgets you first. Please keep our family in your prayers." Broken heart emoji, crying face emoji, hands clasped in prayer. I stared at the screen in disbelief. It was subtle enough to seem innocent, vague enough to preserve deniability, but every line was a knife, carefully positioned to make me look like the villain. The comments rolled in. "You were such wonderful parents. I'm so sorry. Some kids just forget where they came from. Sending you love. We raised ours better, thank God." I could feel the air leave my lungs. Then came Dad's post. More direct, less poetic. "We gave everything to raise our daughters with values. Thought they'd be there for us in our later years. Instead, one of them walked away." And he tagged me. I blinked. My mouth hung open slightly. He'd tagged me. He wanted me to see it. Wanted his network, our family friends, neighbors, relatives to see it too. They weren't just rewriting the story, they were publishing it. Then, like clockwork, Jade chimed in on Instagram. A photo of her on this porch swing beside Mom, both smiling. Mom's eyes glassy like she'd been crying but had pulled herself together for the shot. The caption read, "She doesn't deserve this. None of them do, but I'll keep showing up, even when others don't. That's what family means." No names, no direct accusations, just enough insinuation to send the message. And the comments poured in again. "You're amazing, Jade. Your mom is lucky to have at least one daughter who cares. Stay strong, girl. Family always has one black sheep." I dropped my phone on the table and just sat there. Still, I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't shared the will. I hadn't told anyone what they'd done. I hadn't even hinted. I had just walked away. Quietly. Cleanly. But they couldn't let me go quietly. They didn't want peace. They wanted power. They wanted to control the narrative, cast themselves as the wounded elders, Jade as the devoted daughter, and me as the cold, selfish woman who abandoned her family for no reason at all. I stood up, poured a glass of water. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from something sharper. I had been silent long enough. If they wanted a story told, they were about to get one. Not dressed in emojis and half-truths, but bare, honest, real. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and began to write. Not a rant, not a takedown, just the truth. Because if they were so desperate for an audience, then I might as well give them something worth reading. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I didn't want to be cruel. That wasn't the goal. But I also wasn't going to keep living as a ghost in a story they were writing without me. So I began. I've been silent while my family turned this into a public performance. I wasn't going to say anything. But when silence becomes a weapon used against you, sometimes the only way forward is truth. I typed slowly, carefully. I made every word count. For 6 years, I financially supported my parents. I paid their mortgage, their utilities, their medical bills. I never asked for anything in return. Not recognition, not repayment. I did it because I believed that's what family meant. Then, without a conversation or explanation, I found out I had been written out of their will. Everything is going to my sister. The house I helped pay for, the savings I protected, the car I covered when it broke down. All of it. I didn't yell, I didn't shame anyone. I just stopped showing up. And instead of acknowledging what they did, they launched a public campaign to paint me as the selfish daughter who abandoned them. I'm not selfish. I'm exhausted. I've spent years pouring myself into a relationship where love was conditional and support only flowed one way. If that makes me the villain in their version of events, so be it. But I won't carry their story anymore. I'm writing my own. I won't be guilted, shamed, or manipulated into silence again. And I will not apologize for finally protecting my peace. I read it twice. Then I hit post. And waited. The response was immediate. My notifications lit up like fireworks. First, private messages. From old college friends. A former coworker. A neighbor I hadn't seen in years. Their words poured in like water in a drought. Thank you for sharing this. You just wrote what I've never been able to say. I always wondered why they treated you differently. You're not alone. Then came the shares, the likes, the quiet claps from people who had also been cast as ungrateful for saying no, for setting boundaries, for refusing to carry everything alone. But not all of it was supportive. 2 women from my mom's church commented passive-aggressively, "It's always sad when private matters go public." This doesn't seem like the behavior of a good daughter. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because then came the twist I didn't expect. Jade. She posted a series of Instagram stories later that night, never using my name, but it was clear who she meant. Cropped screenshots of my post, a video of Mom wiping away tears, a long caption over a photo of the 3 of them hugging, with Jade's carefully manicured hand resting protectively on Dad's shoulder. Some people think money equals love. I think love is what you give even when no one's watching. I'll always be here, even when others walk away. Then the kicker. A A screenshot of a $1,000 Venmo transfer with the caption, "Because love doesn't skip payments." The comments were overflowing. "You're amazing." "Your parents are lucky to have at least one daughter who shows up." "Some people just want attention. Keep being you." I sat in silence, my mouth tightening. That $1,000? That was performance. Symbolic. Polished. And maybe the only money she had ever given them. But it looked good. And sometimes in this world, optics scream louder than truth. I closed the app. I didn't respond. I didn't argue. Because I knew something she didn't. The people who needed to know the truth had already seen it. And the ones who refused never cared about truth in the first place. And most of all, I was no longer trying to convince anyone of my worth. It came in a cream-colored envelope, handwritten, postmarked 2 days after my Facebook post went live. No return address, just "Mom" in looping cursive. I held it in my hands for a full minute, unsure whether to open it or toss it straight into the trash. But curiosity, or maybe old habit, won out. I unfolded the letter and read, "Dear Samantha, we're devastated that you've chosen to turn your back on this family over something so minor. The will can be changed, you know that. But your behavior, your public betrayal, that will leave a mark. Jade is trying her best to help us through this. She's heartbroken too, though she hides it well. We want to move forward, but if you want to be part of this family again, you need to apologize. Publicly. Until then, we're cutting contact. For our emotional well-being. Love, Mom." I reread the last lines. "You need to apologize. Not for something I did, but for refusing to stay silent, for telling the truth." I stared at the signature, the word love scrawled like it still meant something. They weren't sorry. They were angry that their illusion had been shattered, that they could no longer control the narrative, that I had stopped playing the role they had cast me in years ago, the quiet, dependable daughter who never needed anything and never asked why. I set the letter down, and for the first time in weeks, I felt nothing. Not rage, not sadness, just clarity. Because the thing no one tells you is that truth doesn't always lead to healing. Sometimes it leads to distance. And distance, I was learning, wasn't the enemy. It was the cure. I didn't write back. I didn't burn the letter either. I folded it neatly, placed it in a drawer next to my passport, and poured myself a cup of coffee. I stood by the window as the morning sun pushed through the clouds, and for the first time in a long time, I felt still. Later that week, I booked a solo trip to Iceland. I'd always wanted to go, always put it off for one reason or another. Work, family, guilt. But guilt wasn't holding the pen anymore. They had chosen Jade, and I had chosen peace. I didn't lose my family. I walked away from a system that was never built to support me. I stopped offering comfort at the expense of my sanity. I stopped paying for love I never really received. I stopped trying to make people see me who had always looked straight through. And in doing so, I found something better than forgiveness or reconciliation. I found freedom. Now, when people ask about my family, I don't tell them the whole story. I just say, we don't talk much. Because not every ending needs an explanation. Some endings just need silence, space, a locked door, a closed chapter, and a woman finally standing in her own light, no longer begging to be seen. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you of something you've lived through, don't keep it inside. Leave a comment, share your truth. And remember, love without respect is just control dressed in pretty words.